Hi, everyone, and welcome to Learnosity's series of on-demand webinars. Thank you for joining us today for our third and final long-term support webinar of 2024. For any viewers unfamiliar with our long-term support releases, they're strong, complete, and stable versions of our APIs. 3 times a year, we release these production-ready versions of our APIs, which are then supported for 2 years. My name is Audrey Young, and I am a Learnosity product manager based in California. Later in the webinar, I'll also be joined by our VP of Product, Nina Vanderbeer, and my fellow product manager, Monet Slanowski. AI is transforming learning. To thrive, learning platforms need to adapt. That's why Learnosity is already shipping your AI roadmap. As the global leader in AI-optimized assessment solutions, Learnosity invests heavily in R&D to stimulate new ways of imagining the assessment experience for product owners, creators, and learners. Our latest major release showcases a batch of AI innovations developed by AI Labs, our trailblazing team of developers and AI specialists that will enable you to swiftly put AI's promise into practice. Let's just briefly run through what's new from our release on the 20th of November. In AI, we'll talk about AI-generated alt text for images, expanded capabilities for author aid, early access to item bank health check, feedback aid now on general release. In STEM, we've got multi-step math question type, multimodal math input. In assessment, you can now choose between cameras for video question type, simulate exam-style scoring for nursing students, show cause and effect with bowtie, distractor rationale for more question types, more flexible UI options, expand possibilities for creative assignments, manual grading beta coming soon. In accessibility, we now offer more perceivable drag-and-drop questions. In authoring, we'll discuss dynamic content now supports commas, more control over intro-outro item defaults, a content management enhancement, and more intuitive workflows for random activities. And finally, in analytics, we'll show you a more flexible session detail by item report.
First, let's dive into AI. Enable authors to boost accessibility instantly and effortlessly with the automatic generation of alt text for visual content. We're going to see in a demo now how this creates those little moments of wonder. Let's go into a multiple choice question, and perhaps we are doing a unit on plants. I'm going to go in and I'm going to select choice A. Instead of writing something down, I'm just going to do an image. So I'm going to choose a flower, maybe for my first image. We see it's uploading here. And then I get to my typical image screen and the alt text is generating for me. The image shows a white flower with multiple petals in a yellow center. That's perfect. Done right away. I'm going to say, okay. That just saved me a few minutes there coming up with an alternate description of the image. And now I'm going to grab some roots, which is the answer to the question. Let's see that load. And we're going to see the same thing, generating the alt text. Silhouette at the lower part of a plant with branching structures and setting outward. Okay, maybe I don't love that, so I can click rewrite and have it do it again for me. Maybe I don't like that it's a silhouette. It is a silhouette, but let's just change it to say image of a plant structure, multiple branching. Let me just change that to roots. There we go. My alt text is written. I have full control. I can choose if I like it or not and make corrections. And I'm going to say okay. And my question is previewed here on the side. So I don't need these other 2 answers. And we can see it in preview. 1 or 2. Author aid just got even better. We've increased the character limit for source materials to 20,000. Expanded learning objectives to 3,000 characters, and enabled translation for more widgets per item. Very excitingly, our item bank health check will soon be available for a closed preview. Built by AI Labs, our trailblazing new team of developers and AI specialists, this diagnostic tool helps content managers analyze the quality of their item banks and ensure content represents learner diversity. If you'd like to be considered for early access to this AI-powered content checker, email team@learnosity.com with your request. And Feedback Aid, our AI-powered essay scoring and feedback solution, is now available to all after a successful beta phase. Providing fast, accurate, and consistent feedback for essays, Feedback Aid saves teachers time while elevating the learning experience. To learn more, visit Learnosity.com and watch our recent on-demand webinar for a deep dive on Feedback Aid.
Next up, in STEM releases. Allow learners to input multi-line solutions for math responses. This new question type enables a deeper understanding of problem-solving processes and helps identify errors in each learner's approach. For our new question type, multi-step math, we can now enter in multi-line solutions for math responses. This new feature is especially helpful in providing line-by-line feedback for students to learn from their mistakes. In this demo, we can see that correct responses are denoted by a green check mark and incorrect responses by a red cross. On the authoring side, authors are now able to add math expressions for each step of the solution and enter in a final value in the final step submenu. The expressions added here, in conjunction with the final step value, will be used in assessing whether intermediate steps are valid. Learners now have the freedom to submit photos of handwritten equations directly into response boxes, which are then accurately read using AI image recognition. In this demo, when we click to enter a response, there is now a camera button in the top right corner that we can select on the keypad input. Once selected, we can take a photo of our handwritten math. Once the image is captured, a preview will appear. If needed, we are able to retake the photo. Once we click accept, we can make edits to what was captured and submit our response.
Now let's get into our assessment releases. Assessment takers can now switch between front and rear cameras on mobile devices, making observational assessment and skills-based demonstration that much easier. For anyone working in the nursing space, this LTS, we have two new NCLEX-specific question types. This one is called Matrix Multiple Response, which augments our existing choice matrix question type with the columnar-based scoring needed for NCLEX's plus-minus scoring rules. So for the matrix multiple response question for NCLEX, it uses plus-minus scoring rules, which means you get +1 mark for every correct answer, -1 for every incorrect, and then for this question, it's columnar scoring with a floor score of 0. So let's see how that looks. I got this one correct, selected the correct answer, that's 1. I missed one, that's a 0. I selected one that was incorrect, that's a -1. Here's another one correct. So we have 2 minus 1. That gives me 1 point in this column. Here I got 2 correct, so that's 2 points. Over here at influenza, I got 2 correct, but I selected 3 incorrect answers. That would give me 2 minus 3, but our floor score in NCLEX is 0, so I get a 0 for this column. And so that gives me 1 plus 2 plus 0 for a score of 3. Now, if you were counting, the total score on this is out of 8. So if we look at our report here, I see I got 3 out of 8. Our second NCLEX-specific question type is bow tie, a specialized classification question type that helps learners visualize the relationships between distinct elements. Thanks to our question types and very flexible UI, you can prepare candidates for the NCLEX exam by creating an environment that mimics the real NCLEX. Here's the first question on our NCLEX practice test. We can see on the left over here, I have the question stem, including the tabular format for showing candidates information. We have the bow tie question type over here on the right. Now in this question type, I'm selecting 1 potential condition for the center, 2 actions to take for the left-hand side, and 2 for the right-hand side. Now what's important here is that the drop zones are specific to the column. So I can't bring a parameter into an action, and I can't bring a condition into a parameter. Also, the bows on the end are order doesn't matter. So as long as I have the correct ones, the order doesn't matter, I'll still get the question correct. Moving on to the next item, here we see our matrix multiple response. I'm going to respond to this like I would any choice matrix. So pneumonia, I think the symptoms corresponding to pneumonia might be fever, might be confusion, maybe a cough. We can do the same thing for UTI for influenza, and we'll see how this is scored later on. Let's keep going through a couple more NCLEX question types here. This is the NCLEX question, select N. We can select 4 questions or 4 findings there. This is our matrix multiple choice where I'm clicking 1 per row. See, there's only 1 response per row in this question type. Here we have another matrix multiple choice. In question 6 here, we have a drop-down close, so it's fill in the blank with drop-down. Next, we're looking at a highlight where I'm highlighting the findings that indicate the client is getting worse. There we go. In our next item, we have another type of highlight. This is highlighting hotspot or hotspot question type. And then we have another multiple choice to round it out. So I'm going to get to the end of this test, finish my drag and drop last question here, and then review and submit. And then we'll look at matrix multiple response in the scoring. Excitingly for authors, we've added out-of-the-box distractor rationale to 7 more question types, including label image with drag and drop, hotspot, and math. We also now support vertical layout within sections, which offers greater flexibility in assessment design. We've also expanded capabilities for the file upload question type, now supporting .psd and .ai files. This allows you to leverage Learnosity in more of your design, illustration, and photography courses, and more with other creative assignments. We also have our manual grading beta coming soon. You asked for the capability to manually grade non-auto scorable questions, so we answered. The beta release of our grading inline solution is nearly ready, so register below if you'd like to be considered for early access. To show our manual grading solution, I've put together a little assessment here with a variety of question types. That was just an essay question. Now we're seeing a classification that's auto-scored. Here's a drawing. Now this can be done with any subjects, of course, with science, with math, with law, with history. We're going to submit the activity. There we go. So now it's time to grade. So we see we have the question rendered on the left, and we have the grading component with the score and the feedback on the right. So here's a non-auto scorable question type. It's our rich essay question type. I can go in, I can enter a grade, I can give some feedback, and I can toggle that feedback. There we go, to show or to not show it. Next, we're going to look at an auto-scored question type. This question here was auto-scored to be 0 out of 1. Now, as the grader, perhaps I don't like that. I could change the score to be 1 out of 1, or I can go in and I can even change the denominator there. So I've made it a 4 out of 6. Now, the auto score will not be lost when I do this. The auto score is still saved in the database, and if I needed to, I could go back and retrieve that, but the primary score is the manual grader score. And I can go in and I can give some feedback on that one as well. We're going to see another question type here. Here's my drawing question type, another non-auto scored. I can go in and give that grade. Here's a file upload. For this one, I didn't set a max score at authoring time, but I can simply go in and add that max score now at grading time. And that will allow me to give a nice grade and some feedback for that learner.
Let's take a look at what's new in authoring. You can create many different variations of your assessments automatically with dynamic content values. And now you can use commas in your content while doing it. Save time authoring content in subjects like math and chemistry by simply pasting your data from CSV files to auto-generate variations. Let's take a look from the business studies subject, looking at basic property commerce. So I've got a question here where I want to assess students' understanding of loan balances when you're using a loan to purchase a property and you're also supplying a deposit there. So I'm asking for students to subtract the deposit from a sales price and then see what the balance is. But I want to create multiple variants of this question. So I'm going to utilize dynamic data And I'll come down here and you can see here is a CSV that I've had set up. The unfortunate reality nowadays with property purchases around the world, often they involve multiple zeros. So this is probably a good example of looking at those larger numbers there and where you're using commas in place just to make it a bit more readable there. So you can see here, to make sure that I can use the quotes within my content, I've just wrapped it in double quotes there. So if I continue, you can see here I've got some variables for the deposit, some variables for the sale price, and then the correct loan balance of minusing the deposit from the sales price. And then we've got some wrong answers to throw students off. Okay, now I'm going to come back and edit my item and input the dynamic data. So if I go into the response template area, I'm going to now just pop in my variable for the sales price. And you can see over here, it's already filling in something from my dynamic data CSV there. And now I'll pop in the deposit, and then I'm going to pop in a response box here for the learner to supply a response. Alrighty, now I want to give them options for the possible responses. I can also use dynamic data here. So I'm going to say that's the correct one. Come down here. Let's give them an incorrect response option and another one there. And best set what is actually correct there. And for extra measure, I think I'll put shuffle options as well, just to change the display of the options there. Okay, so you can see some of those variables are coming through. Now let's go and take a look. Let's save this. Let's just come and take a look at the delivery of this question. So I'll start a new session here, and you can see I've got some options here. So property is purchased for 1.2 million and the deposit is 320,000. Therefore, the loan balance is, some quick math on the fly. I think we're at 880. Let's check that answer there. Okay. Now this is great where you have the scenario where you have many students taking the same test and you want to give them different variants to stop that situation where one student might tell the other student the answer. By giving them different variables of the question that they're looking at, that can help to minimize that. Where this is also helpful can be in formative journeys. So if I put the wrong answer in there, I'm going to go and check that. Now, if I'm a student and I've got this wrong and I just want to try practicing this a few more times, you can give them multiple flavors of the question without having to author them over and over again. And using our try again functionality, they can have a go. And look, it's given me some different variables. So now I'm going to go 1.5 million minus 200,000. Let's take a look at that. 1.3, check answer, and away you go. So just a more flexibility for what is an already very powerful feature that we have with dynamic data there to support commas within your content. Intro and outro items can now be enabled or disabled by default, giving authors more flexibility in their workflows. Let's take a look at this new option. So within Learnosity's very powerful and flexible authoring environment, you can set a lot of different default settings. Now I am on the activity list view. I'm going to create an activity. So if I go through here, one of the myriad of options that you have is to add a welcome screen and an exit screen, otherwise known as an intro and outro item. And you can see that that's enabled by default. If that's not part of your content team's workflows, you don't ever enable intro or outro items, you can disable those by default. So I'm going to disable the intro item here. So I'm going to do my update there of my configuration options. Now if I go to create a new activity, you can see that the welcome screen is disabled by default, saving my authors more time and one more click. The new save restricted _ tags tag lets authors view but not modify certain items and activities, ensuring protected content remains unchanged. Authors can now save empty groups and quickly create item groups for flexible blueprinting. This makes building random activities faster and easier. In 2024.1 LTS, we released random activities, which allows you to create a group of up to 50 items and then select to deliver a portion of them randomly at runtime, say 10 of them. As product builders have been integrating this solution, we've heard your feedback on some usability pieces. Authors can now quickly create item groups as they go through, and you can jump through. And you can also save item groups without any items in them, just to help as you want to sort of scaffold out your structure during the blueprinting process. And behind the scenes, developers also now have a public method to create activity groups programmatically.
Next up, in accessibility. We've made drag and drop questions more accessible for screen reader users by improving how they interact with math, images, and tables. Next up, in analytics releases. Items in session detailed by item report can now be reordered to give learners a customized display tailored to their needs. And that concludes the overview of our third and final long-term support release of 2024. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. Customers can log a ticket at help.learnosity.com. If you're not a customer, feel free to email us at team@learnosity.com. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to hearing from you.